Welcome back to my reading series of my debut novel, Paolo, and the restoration of a childlike optimism. So yesterday you found out that I'm German and that I'm using words in my novel that I can't even pronounce, Yes, so you have to get used to that if you're listening to this audiobook. Hopefully that gives you an extra laugh every now and then. Yes, so we'll stop yesterday that you found out that Frederica is now going back to her hometown, Marburg. And it actually happens. The van with my family parks up in front of my doorstep a week later, and with that, my equilibrium, which I have carefully crafted over several months, is destroyed. In my room, I felt safe. I had created a place with nothing to react to, and now my family is coming and pulling me out of there. Because of their misconception that it is better to live in the house with the old carpets, the newly acquired cat, and the various perfume bottles lined up in the bathroom. But nobody listens to me, no matter how much I object. Mama has the determination of a rhinoceros once she sets her mind to something. "We have to watch this," she says when the new James Bond film hits the cinemas. "We have to buy this," when she sees a dress in the window that she thinks would suit me. "We're going there," when she hears from a friend that it was wonderful in the Alpine village. And we listen to that when we see a poster announcing a concert in one of Marburg's countless churches. "We're going to do this," Mama says as she stands in my room, glancing around as Liesel wraps her arms around my neck and whispers in my ear, "I'm so glad you're coming home." My stepdad and I go to the park where Mama and Liesel are packing. Before I leave the kitchen with 2 coffee to goes and a pack of hypoallergenic biscuits, I put pink post-its on all the things in the kitchen that belong to me, so Mama and Liesel know what they need to pack. My roommates will curse me, but to be honest, I don't give a damn. The way they have ignored my requests not to spray so much perfume around the apartment over the last few months had made me so angry that every time it happened again and I stepped into a cloud of scent as soon as I left my room, the knot of resentment that had formed in my stomach grew by another layer, like a small tumor, layers upon layers of pent-up anger. Jean-Paul Sartre was right about the hell being other people. I used to find this way of thinking a bit too nihilistic, but that was probably just the remnants of an infantile optimism. The older I get, the more I understand how people actually work. More, and I, and in between a faint you. In principle, this finely orchestrated campaign in which Mama and Liesel collaborate for once is primarily based on selfish motives. Mama is worried, and I can't resist the urge to get my illness under control. But she can't do that from Marburg while I'm in Berlin. But she can't do it in Berlin either because her influence doesn't extend that far. As a renowned psychologist and former member of the town parliament, she knows everyone in Marburg. Doors are open to her in front of which most of the citizens of Marburg must stand in a long queue before they can even knock. I understand her line of reasoning, but remain true to the belief that the best thing for me is to maintain the status quo until I find a doctor who knows my condition well enough to give me more treatment options. Ultimately, Mama and I have the same goal, but her strategy is to screw up my entire life and dump everything I've built here in Berlin, and mine is to keep running from doctor to doctor until I finally find someone who doesn't tell me to try a psychiatrist and instead prescribes me a panacea. I thank God, the destiny, angels, Krishna, for my stepfather, who, as an emergency doctor and walking encyclopedia, was the first to come up with the idea that my endless list of symptoms is not 1,000 different diseases, but has one common denominator, the mast cell. Oh, how I despise her for her neurotic hyperreactivity. She can't tell friends from foes. Like an overzealous bodyguard, she kills anyone who comes near me. She's already murdered all my friends. Lasagna, chili con carne, peas and carrots, and porridge. I never know who's next and when or where she's going to hit. In the beginning, it was just my skin, then my eyes, then finally my lungs. Unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, there are still several organs left for her to indulge in the future. If I don't stop her first. Fingers crossed for that. Because, as it says so nicely in an article on the information page for the mast cell diseases, which is intended to give an overview of the illness, sufferers with a known tendency to anaphylaxis therefore have an increased risk of mortality compared to other sufferers. Thank you, Dr. So-and-so. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Basically, Mama and Liesel are right that I'm better off with people near who can take care of me. I can see that. Mainly because my friendships are now completely broken, as if I had crunched these mast cells up into a tight, hard ball and threw it in a window pane and bam, it all shattered. In the beginning, I was still being asked if I wanted to go to the pub or to the cinema, and I went along a couple of times, even though I was sick for days afterwards. I then invited my university friends to my place instead, for coffee or to watch Netflix, and at first they came, but it happened less and less, until Silke only sometimes came by herself, and in the end she didn't even respond to my last invitations. There's this wonderful quote from Franz Kafka: "A man's gesture of bitterness is often just a child's petrified confusion." It is the petrified, degranulated confusion of my mast cells that has led to my bitterness and the selfish, inconsiderate behavior of those around me. The thought that tomorrow morning Katarina and Olivia will be sitting in the kitchen in their clouds of fragrance without coffee, because I took both the kettle and the Nespresso machine with me, is so satisfying that I don't want to admit it openly. It doesn't reflect well on me, but who cares? If there's a legitimate excuse for turning into an asshole, it sure is to be terminally ill. In the park, Johannes and I find a bench to sit on, coffee in hand, and watch the leaves fall. The wind blows around our ears, which in my case are protected by 2 layers of acrylic wool, because I have to avoid getting sick at all costs. As always, Johannes has his cap on, which keeps his ears free. It's time, I think, as I look at him watching the leaves and the birds, that he changed from a summer cap to a winter hat. And then I wonder if I've ever seen him in a hat, but I can't remember, because that's also one of the things that this disease fucks up: my memory. I'm studying literature and I can hardly remember a book I've read in the last 3 years. All gone. It's like that those mast cells are blocking the access to the nerve pathways in my brain, clogging the tunnels with big boulders so I can't get in there and use the golden knowledge that I've amassed inside. Ultimate dumbing down. There's even an explanation for this. The brain's histamine receptors and histamine's ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, which triggers inflammatory processes in the brain, which actively destroy nerve tissue. In addition, the release of histamine also increases the release of the stress hormone cortisol, which, present in high concentrations in the body, acts as a neurotoxin. This can lead to all sorts of ailments, and a very special one is late onset autism. It is to cry for, but I haven't done that for a long time, because crying is also a trigger. I'll pay for 10 minutes of crying with a 48-hour migraine. It's not worth it. I know that from experience. Crying because you have a terminal, miserable illness is very close to what you would call self-pity. The best line so far, in response to my revelation that I have a terminal illness and therefore can't go bowling, came from one of my uni friends, Alex. He said, "We're all dying right now." What he didn't say was, "You're just going a little faster than us." Johannes puts one of my hypoallergenic biscuits in his mouth and chews mechanically. He's the only person I know who puts a biscuit in his mouth without biting into it first. His mouth is big enough for that, and he can even chew with his lips closed. Remind me what medication you're on right now, he says while chewing. 3 loratadine, the pregabalin you prescribe me, sometimes aquavastin if it can't be avoided, then 2 inhalers. Haven't we switched you to the combo inhaler yet? He interrupts me. Nah, I think that was because there's lactose in it, and because lactose comes from milk, we didn't want to pump that straight into my lungs. He nods. Oh yeah, that was that, he says, popping another biscuit into his mouth. I watch with some regret as the box empties itself. That's €3 spread over 8 biscuits. That's almost €1, which he shoved between his jaws in 2 bites. But then I think that he can do it. He can eat the whole box by himself for all I care. After all, he has to put up with me moving back home now. Although this is only temporary. I warned Mama not to expect me to cook lunch every day from now on. I'll look for an apartment and move out as soon as possible. My parents have a nasty habit of walking around the house half naked, and that's not exactly something I want to encounter on a daily basis. That's good coffee, says Johannes, pointing to his mug. I didn't expect it to be. He means my Nespresso machine coffee. Johannes abhors these things. He orders his coffee in bulk and beans from an Italian espresso wholesaler and uses an Italian-made espresso machine to brew it. Complimenting my coffee can only mean that he's worried about me. It's his way of trying to cheer me up. We sit for a while and talk about this and that, and then we slowly walk back to the Schorina Straße, and because the lift takes ages to come, we climb the 5 floors up to the last flat underneath the roof. I met Christiane Paul once on the 3rd floor. I almost fell backwards down the stairs when I recognized her. Okay, she was 20 years older than she was in life as a construction site, but she was still beautiful. Since then, I can't walk towards her house without my heart beating faster. And everything packed? Asks Johannes as we arrive at the apartment. Like 2 shy cats, Katharina and Olivia have not been seen all morning. To avoid this morbid family drama, they must have left the apartment unusually early this morning. Since I've had this disease, the phrase treating someone like a leper has taken on a whole new meaning. Yes, everything is ready, says Mama. Almost, says Liesel. She's squatting in front of the dresser, a fancy thing I found on Facebook Marketplace just a year ago for an apple and an egg. The bottom drawer is open and she's scooping the contents into a nearly full bin bag. Oh look, she says, turning to face us, holding a black rectangular box. Your flute, she has to come too, doesn't she? I turn my head away. I don't know exactly why the tears come right now, but they do. Probably because the memory of how it all started and got worse is significantly linked to my flute. The eczema and ulcers I got on my lower lip for months, the shortness of breath while playing with my lips pressed to the silver containing nickel. The flute ended up in the bottom drawer like the rest of my life. Suddenly it's quiet in the room. Liesel looks devastated. Mama pierces her with glowing stares, and Johannes looks at his phone on which he opened Google Maps. From where I'm standing, I can see the zigzag line of our itinerary flashing in blue. I'll bring something down, I say, bending down to pick up my yucca tree that's standing by the door. Although it's heavy and almost breaks my back, I carry down the many flights of stairs to the sidewalk. There I hand her over to the young Syrian whom Johannes has hired to drive the van, carrying my belongings home. I straighten my back in an upright fish pose and tilt my head backward, gaze at the sky, which is grey like a stormy sea. My shoulders ache, muscles not used to lift more than a coffee mug complain about overuse. Since everyone keeps telling you to listen to your body, I decide it's not a day for heroism and walk down the hallway to the far end where the lift access is.